Testing 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bed Community Center. You can walk right in here for a special Chazaq event with world-renowned lecturer and author, Rabbi Benzion Shafier from the Shmuz. Before we begin tonight's event and lecture, just a few quick announcements. Every night for the men, there's a men's learning program upstairs, Sunday to Thursday, classes in English, Hebrew, and Russian. Amazing lecture. Galia, you can tell on this side. English, Hebrew, and Russian. Don't miss out, ladies. Tell your husbands, your brothers, your fathers to come. Upcoming events. Tomorrow night, Rabbi Nissanin at Bet Eliyahu in Fresh Meadow, Shalom Biden preparing for Rosh Hashanah. Sunday, 3 Chazaq events. Rabbi Mordechai Beck at the Young Rays of Forest Hills. Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss at the Young Rays of Briarwood, and Rabbi Ari Lev Katzin in Russian right over in Bet Gavriel. Monsey, Shabbat, and Sunday. Saturday night and Sunday, Chazaq will be having a pre-Rosh Hashanah suit sale at YCQ. Suits sold in stores for $495 up to $995. We're only selling for $150. Borsalino hats for $150. Suit jackets, wool dress pants. Proceeds go to the organization. Check it out Saturday night and Sunday. Last announcement, actually two other announcements. September 9th is our annual dinner. Terrace in the park. Come and spread the word to all. Rabbi Yitzi Obam, Simcha Moshe, Moshe Steib, Robert Gurgov, Alicia Isinger, Manny Bahar, the honorees. We're going to be having a Chnas Sefer Torah as well, guessing we're from Israel. Should be very, 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 very nice. Reservations are still available. It's a week from tonight. And you could also do an ad in the journal. Write Mazel Tov or congratulations to any of the honorees with your organization or advertise your business. Last announcement is that Chazaq will be joining the Shmuz once again on September 20th, Sunday night, in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Teshuva Shmuz, Tiferes Bnei Torah, at the Young Israel of Kew Gardens Hills. Please come and spread it to all. Let's get everyone over there. It's going to be inspiring. Don't miss it. Actually, the day after, September 21st, we're going to be having Rabbi Gabriel Sassoon, along with Rabbi Daniel Travis, also the Young Israel of Kew Gardens Hills, all during the Tiferes Bnei Torah. So please save the dates. You'll see the events on the Parsha papers. You'll see the flyers all around the community. You'll hear about it. Just try to come and once again spread the word. Bring a friend along with you. Without further ado, it is my honor, my privilege, my kavod to call upon my very good friend, the founder of the Shmuz, a man that inspires thousands of people on a consistent basis, Rabbi Benzion Shafier, please.
The Malachei Ashores looked down on the Jewish people on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, and these are the highest level of Malachim, highest level of angels, and they watch the Yom Kippur davening, they watch the Rosh Hashanah davening, and the Gemara tells us that they have a question. Bikshu Malachei Ashores asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, asked Hashem, Mipnei ma ein Yisrael omrim shira. Why is it that the Jewish nation doesn't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur? There's something missing from the Tefillah. There's Shacharis, there's Musaf, there's a tremendously long davening, but there's a part of the davening that's missing. And why is it that the Jewish nation doesn't say Hallel? And Hashem answers them. Hashem's answer is Sifrei Chaim, Sifrei Movis, Besukim Lefanov, the books of life and the books of death that are open in front of them. The Yom Shira, they're going to sing. It's inappropriate. They're being judged for their life. Whether they're going to live, whether they're going to die, is being weighed and measured. It's inappropriate for them to sing Hallel. It's inappropriate for them to sing. And that's a Gemara. And if you think about this Gemara, I believe it's very difficult to understand. And I'll share with you why. I am a human being, made of flesh and blood, with very, very limited sight. I can see something 2 inches in front of my nose. If you ask me what's going to be tomorrow, I don't have a clue. And if you think you know, just watch the stock market. And you'll tell me the prediction that China is going to tank, their economy is going to go down, and the stock market's going to lose 1,000 points in a day. We human beings don't have a clue. So I understand why I might ask such a question. But here's the problem. The group that asked this question of Hashem are malachim, angels, without physicality, without a body, pure, absolute intellect, pure yediyah sichli, pure understanding. And these are the highest level of malachim. They're not just malachim, the most pure, most holy, most intelligent malachim. And they asked a question that sounds like a klotzkash, it sounds like a foolish question. Obviously, the Jewish people shouldn't be singing, they shouldn't be dancing. Hallel doesn't belong in davening, because just like Hashem said, their life is being decided. Whether they live, whether they die, how could they possibly say Hallel? Isn't it obvious? What was the Malachim's question? Why did Hashem have to answer them? And I'd like to see if we can understand what in fact the Malachim were asking, and why in fact this is a legitimate question. And to understand this, I think we need to focus on what I call the issues of the day. If you'd like to understand what happens on Rosh Hashanah, if you'd like to understand the issues that are judged, all you have to understand is what the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah tells us: Kol Bo'ei Olam, every occupant of the planet, every human being, old or young, great or small, wealthy or poor, every single human being is judged on Rosh Hashanah. But it's not just human beings. The entire planet, the cosmos, physicality, Malachim Yechafezun, the Malachim themselves tremble, because whether the world continues to exist or does not continue to exist is a question, is something that Hashem judges on Rosh Hashanah. And if you'd like to know the extent of the judgment, all you have to know is that every issue that affects humanity is weighed, measured, and decided. Which countries go to war, which will suffer famine, which new technologies will be brought to the market, which new cures will be discovered, which diseases will suddenly appear on the scene that no one ever heard of before, which dictators will be toppled, which countries will have grand success. If you'd like to know what's decided on Rosh Hashanah, all you have to know is that the headlines of the New York Times are written on Rosh Hashanah. But it's not the headlines of that day. The headlines of the entire year are written on Rosh Hashanah. But it's not just the headlines. It's the international section, the national, it's the local, it's the global, all of the issues that affect mankind. The New York Times used to brag about having 265 full-time reporters, 40 full-time photographers, because there are so many issues that affect this globe that's occupied by 7 billion people that they had a whole army to cover it. A Chumash, Chamisha Chumshei Torah, has about 500,000 words in it. A Sunday edition of the New York Times has about 2 million words in it. If you try to read the Times out loud from cover to cover, the Sunday edition, it would take you 20 hours. Because there's such a vast amount of things that are going on this planet. And if you imagine Hashem as the shofet, as the judge, looking at the multi-tiered chessboard, putting this pawn into its position, this bishop into its position, arranging humankind's fate, arranging the future of humanity. That is an eye glimpse as to what happens. And if you think about all of the issues, it boggles the human mind. It's well beyond the human capacity to even envision or imagine. But Hashem sits there as a shofet, and Hashem judges everything that happens. And the Bali Musa give us a little inkling. If you read the words of an Asana Tokef, they're very eye-opening. Rosh Hashanah Yikasevun, on Rosh Hashanah it's written, Yom Kippur Yechasemun, on Yom Kippur it's sealed, Kama Yavrun v'Kama Yibareun, how many will pass and how many will be born. Mi Yichye u'mi Yamus. But you see there's a sequence over there. Before any individual is judged, the entire cosmos is judged. In the United States of America last year, approximately 2.5 million people died. Approximately 600,000 by cancer, approximately 500,000 heart disease, and you could go down the various diseases and find them decreasing in numbers. But that's not the way Hashem judges the world. Hashem comes out with an exact number. Exactly these many people will pass this year. Exactly these many babies will be born. And after Hashem has these large global numbers, then Hashem fills in the slots. It's you and it's you, it's you and it's you, filling in the different slots. But it's first from the global and then down to the local. Now we, the Jewish people, have a unique relationship with Hashem. We're avodim to Hashem, we're servants, but we're also banim, we're children to Hashem. And on Rosh Hashanah, during Aseret Teshuva, on Yom Kippur, there should be a very real sense within the heart of a Jew of this is astonishing. Finally, I get to experience Hashem as Hashem really is. You see, during the course of the year, it's very difficult to feel Hashem. It's very difficult to experience Hashem. One minute I'll be davening, speaking to my Creator, the next minute my mind is gone and I'm 3,000 miles away. But Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are different. We change the language in Shemona Esrei. We no longer say Hakel HaKadosh, we say HaMelech HaKadosh. And the Mishmur explains why. Hakel HaKadosh refers to Hashem as the God, hidden behind the scenes, behind the heavy veil of this world where you can't see Him. But if you refer to Hashem during Aseret Teshuva as Hakel HaKadosh, you're not Yotzei. You didn't fulfill your obligation. Do you know why? We refer to Hashem as Hashem manifests Himself in this world. During the course of the year, Hashem is hidden. Behind the scenes, you can't see Him. But from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, as the Mishmur explains, Hashem is Mare Memshal Toso. Hashem shows His dominion. Hashem shows His majesty, and you could feel it. The reason why we say HaMelech HaKadosh is because that's where Hashem is manifesting Himself then. No longer is a God hidden behind the scenes, but the Melech, the King, sitting on the throne of Din. And you could experience it, you could feel it, it's palpable. The Davidowitz gives a mashal. He says, imagine that your eyes are closed, and a man holds a candle right here. Now you can't see the flame because your eyelids are blocking, but you sense the light. That's Hashem's presence on Rosh Hashanah, during Aseret Teshuva, on Yom Kippur. I could feel Hashem, I could relate to Hashem, and I could relate to concepts that during the course of the year I normally can't. I could sit back and see Hashem as the Shofet, as the judge on the throne, judging humanity. And that should bring a Jew to a very interesting experience. When I walk into shul on Rosh Hashanah, and I think about that, when I contemplate that, it should bring me a tremendous sense of joy. Baruch Hashem, Hashem is finally showing Himself as the Melech. Baruch Hashem, I could experience Hashem's presence. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem is finally showing Himself as the Shofet. And there should be a tremendous simcha, a tremendous joy in a Jew's heart, because on Rosh Hashanah, during Aseret Teshuva, on Yom Kippur, you could experience Hashem in a way you can't during the rest of the year, and that should bring a Jew to a tremendous sense of joy, of jubilation. Rav David Kronglass, the Mashgiach of Ner Yisrael, Levrocha, used to say that on Yom Kippur, if it weren't for the Eimas Adin, it weren't for the fear of being judged, he would dance a rikud. He'd be in the aisle dancing a jig. Because you could feel things on Rosh Hashanah that you can't feel during the rest of the year, and it brings a Jew to such joy, to such happiness. And I believe that's what the Malachim are asking. Why isn't Hallel part of the davening? Why aren't the Jews singing out Shiras v'tishbachos, praising Hashem with tremendous joy in their heart? And they should be experiencing Hashem, they should be feeling such joy. Why aren't they saying Hallel? And nevertheless, Hashem answers them. And I believe Hashem's answer is, you're correct. There should be such a feeling in the heart of a Jew, tremendous joy, tempered, held in check with a very real understanding. You see, globally, it's wonderful. Think about Hashem as the Shofet, as the Melech over the world. It's magnificent. But as Hashem judges humanity, and I recognize that I too am a human, there's a certain reality that begins dawning upon me. And that is that my life is being weighed, measured, and decided. It's wonderful to think Hashem as the global king, and it's exciting, and it's joyful. But I also have to realize that my fate is being decided. My fate, and the fate of my family, the fate of my community. And so there should be joy in the heart of a person, tempered with an understanding of the gravity of the issues of the day, and tempered by an understanding of the things that are being weighed, measured, and decided, but both hergation, both feelings should be there. I should walk into shul with a tremendous sense of joy, of happiness, tempered, held in check, and because of the reality that there are many, many serious issues being weighed, measured, and decided, but both feelings should be there, tremendous joy and a sense of awe, because I recognize the seriousness, the gravity of the day. So, with that as a background, I'd like to ask what I consider an obvious question. We're all maminim. We're all believers. We get it. I get it. Hashem is going to determine my future. Hashem will determine how much money I make. Hashem will determine my health, my well-being. I get it all. And I also know the power of tefillah. We're told by the Nevi'im, we're told by the Rishonim, we're told by the Gemara over and over that many times Hashem waits for our tefillah, and many times Hashem just waits for our prayer. Prayer affects things. So here's the question. If I understand that I'm being judged, and I understand the power of davening, of tefillah, wouldn't you imagine that I'd be in shul hour after hour, begging, beseeching, imploring, tears running down my face, Hashem, please, please, please. And while it's true that Rosh Hashanah davening is different than the davening during the rest of the year, for many of us, I don't think that hour after hour of begging, imploring, beseeching, tears running down my cheeks is exactly a description of the tefillah. So here's the question. If I get it, if I know that Hashem judges my future, and I know the power of prayer to affect that future, how is it possible that I don't sit there davening and davening, asking with tremendous outpouring of emotion? And that's the question I think that we all need to ask ourselves. And I'd like to share with you what I believe is the answer to that question. I believe the answer is that there are two reasons why it is very difficult for us to daven. The first has to do with our generation. We live in unique times. Never in the course of history has there been this much wealth, this much abundance, this much opulence. If you look at kings from 300 years ago, they did not live in the homes that we live in. They didn't wear the clothing that we wear. They didn't eat the food that we wear. The average tax-paying citizen in our society is far wealthier than kings ever could imagine being 500 years ago. And the reality is that we have such wealth that it's astonishing. And that is a bracha, a tremendous bracha, but it also comes at a little cost. My friend's father was a Rav in New York City during the Depression era, 1929. And he described to his son that he doesn't remember a single Rosh Chodesh benching. Not a single Rosh Chodesh benching does he remember that he didn't hear women from the other side of Mechitza break down openly and cry. And when they got to the Chaim Shel Parnasa, when they got to the part about Hashem give us Parnasa during Rosh Chodesh benching, he would hear women every Rosh Chodesh break down, openly cry. Why? Because in those days, if you couldn't pay the rent, the landlord evicted you and he put your goods, whatever you had, on the sidewalk, and that's where you slept that night. And there was no social net to bear you out, no one who would take care of you. If you couldn't pay your bills, you didn't eat. You went hungry, your children went hungry, and there was no one who would bail you out. When you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, you stand in front of your Creator with a very real sense of dependence. And you say the words, Hashem, I can't do it. Hashem, I depend on you. Hashem, it's not within my capacity, it's not within my control, please help. And when you lack, when you want, you stand in front of Hashem and you recognize your dependence, you recognize your relationship, and it's very easy to daven. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was one of the Gedolei Yisrael, and it was in the War of Independence, 1948, when bombs were dropping in Yerushalayim all over the place, and people were living in panic and fear. Rav Shlomo Zalman was calm, and his Talmidim at a certain point said, Rosh Yeshiva, how do you have such equanimity, such calm? It's such a dangerous situation. And he said to them as follows: I grew up in Yerushalayim in the 1920s. I don't know what it meant as a boy to go to bed not being hungry. When you grow up with suffering, things don't rattle you as much. Well, folks, I'd like to share with you, I don't know a person my age or younger who ever went to bed hungry. And not hungry to go, Mom, meatloaf again. I mean, hungry because there's no food. We don't know what that means. We have such wealth that it's frightening. Our issues are how we're going to pay our credit card bills, how we're going to finance things. But by and large, we have so much wealth, so much opulence, and it's very difficult for us to stand in front of Hashem and say, Hashem, I can't do it. Hashem, I don't have food to eat. Hashem, I don't have clothing on my back. And Baruch Hashem, it's a tremendous bracha, but it comes with a cost. And that cost is when you don't lack, when you don't want, there's a sense of independence, a sense of, I don't really need Hashem. And then it's very difficult to daven. And I believe that's the first reason why it's difficult for us to daven in our day and age, because we don't lack, we don't want. And so it's difficult to stand in front of Hashem and feel that we're dependent. And the first problem, I believe, is easily solvable. If you'd like to deal with this issue, I have a very simple solution. The Granat, Rav Naftali Trop, pre-World War II Rosh Yeshiva, Slichas night was once approached by a balabas. And one of his balabatim came over to him and said, Rosh Yeshiva, how could I say these words? In Slichas we say the words, Kedolim, Uchoroshim, Dafaknu, Delasecha. Hashem, we bang on your door as poor and impoverished men. How could I say those words? I'm a rich industrialist. I have 500 men in my employ. How could I lie? How could I say to Hashem, I'm poor when I'm so wealthy? The Granat turned to this man and said, you're making one mistake. You're assuming that because last Rosh Hashanah you had a decree that you're going to keep your wealth, you assume that you're going to have the same decree this year. But if you knew that that was an open question, if you realize that that question is being weighed, measured, and decided, and there are no guarantees, because you're wealthy last year and the year before is nice, but that doesn't guarantee that that's the decree you're going to get this year. And if you understood that that's an open question and there are no status quos, there are no guarantees, you'd recognize you are a poor man because you have no control over that. And I think the Granat shares with us a tremendous concept. Wall Street lives with this principle. Previous performance is no guarantee of future results. And if you think about every issue of your life, and you realize that every one of them is being weighed, measured, and decided, and there are no guarantees. Health, I'm a young, healthy person. I'm not going to worry about that. Well, you find out that some young, healthy people go diving and they hit their head on a rock, snap the neck back, spinal cord gets severed, and they spend the rest of their life in a wheelchair. One lone microbe invades a person's body, and Sloan Kettering is the next address that he visits. And you find that young, healthy people sometimes end up not being so young and healthy. Well, Parnasa I don't have to worry about. Baruch Hashem, I'm doing very, very well. And then you hear about people who are doing very, very well and their business goes under. And you hear about a cardiologist, a doctor. Cardiologist, a specialist. He can't have a financial problem until you find out that the HMOs aren't paying what they used to. Medical malpractice is skyrocketing. He has to sell his practice to the hospital. Not only is he now an employee, but he's making 1/3 of what he was once making. And when you begin studying the human condition, what you find is things change. Healthy young people become not so healthy and young. And people have a lot of issues, a lot of things they didn't expect. And if you understood that every one of these issues is an open question, and there are no status quos, because last year I was given it doesn't mean I'll be given it this year. If you understood that every one of these questions has no guarantee to it, I think it'd be a lot easier to daven. If you would like to make your Rosh Hashanah davening meaningful, I'll give you a little Musar exercise. Open the newspaper to the obituary section. Now, I used to have to tell people what the obituary section of the newspaper was. Now I have to explain to people what a newspaper is. Okay, if you don't know what a newspaper is, it's one of those tabloid things. I go online, find the obituary section online, okay? Do this little Musar exercise, and I guarantee you Rosh Hashanah davening is going to be different. Study the people in the obituary section. Look at the pictures, read the paragraphs, and study them. And you'll find something very, very interesting. Amongst them are a lot of older people, but there are plenty of young people. Amongst them are a lot of people who are ill, but amongst them are plenty of people who are healthy and well. Amongst them are a lot of people who are brilliant, and amongst them are a lot of people who are dumb. A lot of people are tall, a lot of people are short, a lot of people fat, a lot of people skinny, a lot of people young, a lot of people old. and you'll find every sort of human being there. And you'll find only one single common denominator. There's only one feature that they all have in common. They used to be alive, and they are no longer. But other than that, there is no other common denominator. And when you study that, and then you reach that brilliant conclusion, aha, I get it. I'm a human being. Yeah. And all human beings eventually are no longer. Hopefully a long time from now, but there will come a time, not maybe there'll be a time, with absolute vadayis, complete clarity of understanding, and I have to recognize there will be a time when I will no longer be here. I won't be here, I won't be alive, my body be in the ground, and I'll answer to Hashem for what I did. And when you think about that concept, I believe it changes your davening radically. Why? Because you know that that question is being decided. Will I live this coming year or will I not? Will I be healthy or will I not? Will my children have great success or will they not? You know, I know a man who told me he didn't know what a shalom bayis problem was. He didn't know what he never fought with his wife. He didn't even know what the issue was. He never heard of the issue. He lost his job, he changed, she changed. 6 months later he was divorced. Things happen. Strange things happen to people. And when you look back over the year and you see all of these things that occurred to other people, and you realize that you too are a people, and you realize that every issue of your future is being weighed, measured, and decided, and there are no guarantees, you walk into shul and you say to Hashem, I can't do it. One worldwide depression, and we're all out of a job. One pandemic, one epidemic, and we're all toast. Hashem, I can't control my future. And if you don't hear this, I'll give you one more Musar exercise. If you're feeling very, very confident, and you're feeling, it's hard for me to daven, it's hard for me to walk into Rosh Hashanah and really get moving, use my little Musar exercise, and I think it may affect you. Tonight, as you lay your head down on the pillow, say the following words. I hereby will it to be that tomorrow morning I shall wake up. Say the words. I hereby will it to be that tomorrow morning I will wake up. And as you say those words, recognize the folly of that statement. It is not within my control. I sure hope it happens. It's happened every day of my life. Every day, day after day, I've opened my eyes, but I do not control that. I walk across 108th Street, and hopefully I don't get hit by a bus. I get into the elevator, and hopefully there's a cab there and not an open elevator shaft. I hope that when I put my head down on the pillow tonight, I open my eyes in the morning, but I don't control it. Whether I exist or not is not within my control, not within my dominion. And when you recognize that, you stand in front of your Creator and you say the words, Hashem, I get it. You're in charge. You're the boss. You determine the future. Hashem, I depend on you. I rely on you. Please help. And you daven in a very different way. So the first reason why it's difficult for us to daven is because we don't lack, we don't want. I believe the Granat's answer is we all lack, we all want, because every issue of my life is an open question and there are no guarantees. But I believe there's a second reason why it's difficult for us to daven. And the second reason is because the judgment that we're going to stand in less than 2 weeks, a week and a half, is very different than any judgment that exists on this planet. You see, all judgments that we live through, that we experience, have a time of fact-finding, time of deliberation, and a verdict is read. Let me explain to you what I mean. It was about 20 years ago, and Nicole Simpson was found dead. O.J. Simpson, her husband, was found racing down the highway the wrong way. And when the police finally stopped him after a long chase, they found blood in his Jeep. They found blood on the gloves that he wore. They found a mask. They found money. And to anyone looking, even in a cursory manner, it was obvious that he killed his wife. And it didn't take a rocket scientist to understand this, but O.J. Simpson was a high-profile person, quite wealthy, and he was going to put the U.S. judicial system on trial. He was going to prove whether, in fact, money can buy freedom. So he hired himself the dream team, including Alan Dershowitz, and they defended the man. And there was a mockery of justice that went on. There was a little bit of a circus that went on for months in the United States of America. Well, it happens to be that the verdict was going to be read right around Rosh Hashanah. And I said to myself, I have to be there. I have to see this scene. And you have to imagine this. O.J. Simpson is sitting at the bench. He's gripping that bench. He's white as a ghost. You see, whether he's going to be a caged animal for the rest of his life, or if he's going to walk free, is going to be read to him right now. The jury foreman opens the envelope. She pulls out the slip of paper, and she says, we find the defendant not guilty. Whoa! Joy and happiness. Man's face lit up. That's judgment in our world. It's fact-finding, deliberation, and then the verdict is read. But when the verdict is read, the defendant hears it, the judge hears it, everyone in the courtroom hears it, and everyone knows what the verdict is. Ritz Hashem, we're going to stand in judgment, and there will be fact-finding, there will be deliberation, and there will be a verdict. But we don't hear the verdict. We don't know what the verdict is. We walk out of shul on Rosh Hashanah night, and we wish each other l'shana tova, tikasev, tichasim, we're happy, we're joyful, we go home, we dip the apple in the honey, but we don't know what the verdict is. And it's very difficult to daven when you don't know what the verdict is, you don't hear it being read. The Stipler Gaon was the Gadol of Yisrael about 30 years ago, when he was in his mid-80s. He was constantly involved in learning, and it was rare for him to look up. He would look down in a sefer. In the afternoons, people would come into his apartment, and his apartment was always filled. People would ask for a bracha, they'd ask advice. Rare it was they would look up, he would address the people very quickly, they'd give them a bracha or an answer, whatever it may be, and person after person would pass, he'd be looking down. One afternoon, Stipler is looking down, the apartment is filled with people, a man walks into the apartment, and the Stipler looks up, and he stops. And he points, and in Yiddish he screams out, Russia! Wicked one! Wicked one! Get out! Get out of here! Get out of here! And the man who had walked in turned white, turned red, turned on his heels and ran out the door. A few hours later, another man comes in and says, Rosh Yeshiva, with all due respect, the man that the Stipler called a Russia was not such a Russia. That man got into a car. That car very shortly afterwards got into a severe accident. Everyone else in the car was killed. That man alone was saved. Obviously, he's not such a wicked person. The Stipler turned to this man and said, don't you understand? When he walked in the door, the Malach HaMovis walked in with him. The only way I could save him, if you embarrass a man publicly, you kill Rochester, as you killed him, it was the only way I could save him. There was once a time when we had people like the Stipler who could see the Malach HaMovis walk in with person. But we don't see. We wear Yom Tov clothing. The Mishabura says we're supposed to be batuach, supposed to trust in Hashem's mercy. And we dip that apple in the honey, but we don't know. But I'd like to share with you an observation. If you daven in a shul, if you daven in a kehillah that's large enough, I guarantee that there'll be many beautiful decrees written this Rosh Hashanah. A man who for years couldn't earn a living, his business turns around and suddenly flourishes. An older woman who couldn't find Tabar. She couldn't find the person, this year she's going to find. A couple who for 10 years couldn't have children, this is the year they're going to have children. There will be many beautiful decrees signed and sealed. But I also guarantee that if you daven a large enough kehillah, there'll be some decrees that aren't so sweet. There'll be people that lose their jobs, people who lose their homes, people who lose their health. And I guarantee if you daven a large enough kehillah, there'll be at least one or two exes. At least one or two people who will not be with us the next Rosh Hashanah. And if you look around the room and you try to tabulate, if you try to figure out who is it going to be who gets that X, I guarantee you'll fool yourself. Why? Because go back to the obituary section and see the pictures of the old people, the young people, the sick people, the healthy people, the people you never expected. Who would ever expect a person of his age to be dead? But it happens all the time. And if you think about it, we're a little bit asleep. You know, I was a high school Rebbe for many years, and we lived in Rochester for 12 years. My parents, Leah Shalom, used to live in Kew Gardens Hills, and often we'd make the trip from Rochester to Kew Gardens Hills. It was about a 7-hour drive. And often we'd leave about 5 p.m. We'd put my daughter in the car seat. She was 3 then. We'd strap her in. And I used to play this little game with my daughter. She was 3, and I'd say, who should drive? Should Abba drive? Should you drive? Anyway, one February day, it's about 5 o'clock. We leave Kew Gardens Hills. I strap my daughter in. My wife gets into the passenger seat, and I get behind the wheel. And I start driving. We hit 81 North. 81 North is a 2-lane trucking highway. And when we hit that, when we got on the highway, it started snowing. But not snow, sheets and sheets. I couldn't see what looked like 10, 15 feet in front of me. But here's the problem. 81 North has no shoulder to that road. So I couldn't even pull over. So the only thing I could do is stick my foot up the gas, hoping to slow down. But as I start slowing down, somehow the car veers off. I try to turn the other way, and it does a full revolution. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. It turns around once, and it's turning around a second time. And as we're turning the second time, I look back and I see it. An 18-wheeler truck coming directly here. My car is going this way, and this truck is going this way, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Somehow we ended up on the embankment, and the truck missed us and passed by, and I just lived through the most harrowing moment in my life. And I look back, and my 3-year-old was sound asleep in the car seat. The only thing missing from the scene was for her to wake up and say, Abba, do you want me to drive? Would you like to know what I mean? We sit there on Rosh Hashanah, and every issue of our life is being decided. And we're a little bit like that kid in the car seat, sound asleep. Oh man, how long is this davening? Oh, the rabbi's going to drone on and on. I hope my wife made pulses because I'm really hungry and I really do enjoy it. And if you think about the fact that every issue of my wife's life, my children's life, my community, everything that I'm going to be involved in is being weighed and measured, and I'm sound asleep like a child in the car seat. And I think one of the things that we have to do is wake up. And the Davidowitz gives us a piece of advice. If you'd like to wake up, don't do, he says, what most people do. Most people walk into Shiur on Rosh Hashanah and say, oh my goodness, a lot of things I got to think about. Earn a living, do well in school, my children to get a shidduch, my child to get in this class. There's so many issues in my life. Oh my goodness, I better get to work in daven. Says the Davidowitz, you're going about it backwards. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. What you should do is look back at this previous year. Review all of those strange events that happened. You just happened to be here, you met this person, and he said do this, and suddenly something came out of that. And a few weeks later you were here, you tripped and you broke your leg, and something else came out of that. Review all of the strange events of your past year, and maybe the year before that, and the year before that, and then say to yourself these words. Every one of those issues was decided on the previous Rosh Hashanah. That I should meet this person or not. That I should get this client or not. That I should get this job or not was decided on the previous Rosh Hashanah. And when you do that, when you review your life and you realize that every one of those issues was decided on the previous Rosh Hashanah, you begin to get it. The din is now real. And I have a little Musar exercise if you want to change your davening. Take 2 index cards. Start tonight. On one index card, and write down all the strange things that happened to you this year. Those strange coincidences that when they happen, you say, it's Ashkacha, it's Hashem. Write them down. And on the next index card, write down all the issues of your life, the things that you need, whether it's earning a living, whether it's shalom bayis, whether it's health, whatever they are, write them down. And walk into shul with both index cards in your hand. Look at this one and say, Every one of these, it happened to me, and it was written on the last Rosh Hashanah. And every one of these on this card that I need is decided on this Rosh Hashanah. And then the din is real. Then you recognize that Hashem really is in charge. I think this Chazal shares with us a tremendous concept. The Malachim had a question. They looked down globally on the Jewish people and they said, part of the davening is missing. Why is it that the Jewish nation aren't singing Hallel? Why aren't they singing praises? Why did they ask that? Because a Jew should experience joy, happiness in his heart on Rosh Hashanah, an experience that he can't experience during the rest of the year. You can experience Hashem's presence. You can recognize things. You could think about things. You can understand things. Hashem is much more accessible, and that should bring you a sense of joy, of happiness. However, Hashem answers, you don't say Hallel. Why? Because the Tiferes Chaim, the Tiferes Mothers, the Pesuchim, the books of life, and the books of death are open. It's inappropriate. But you should have joy tempered with that understanding, held in check with the understanding of the gravity of the day. But both experiences should be there. If it's hard to daven because we don't lack, the Granat's answer is we do lack, because every issue of my life is an open question, and every one is being decided. And if it's hard to experience a din because we don't hear the verdict, all you have to do is look back on the past few years and realize that every one of those events was written on a previous Rosh Hashanah. By the way, one of the best things you could ever do for your own growth is write your own biography. You see, an autobiography, every Jew has a story. Every Jew has a story, how he ended up here, how she ended up here. Everyone has strange events that happened in their life. And if you look back over the previous years, and you realize that one after another, after another, after another, is Hashem's involvement. But every one of those was written on a previous Rosh Hashanah, suddenly you begin realizing things in a different sense, in a different way. I want to close with a story, and then I'll take questions. This story is especially chaviv, especially precious to me because it happened to a good friend of mine. Every part of the story is exactly as it happened except for one detail. He asked me to change his name. Other than that, this is how it happened. Chaim Goldstein was living in Kew Gardens. His brother-in-law was living in Forest Hills, and both families were going to be by Chaim's house for Shabbos. Chaim's wife Thursday night cooks. She's about finished cooking, and she gets a call from the sister. Listen, my husband came home late, and we decided we're not coming for Shabbos, we're going to stay home. Chaim's wife says, what do you mean? I cooked the whole Shabbos already. You can't not come. Do come, don't come, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, Chaim's wife says, listen, I cooked Shabbos already anyway, let's do this. Instead of both couples being over here, I'll pack up all the food, and will everybody be by you? So that's what they made up. Instead of everybody being by Chaim's house, they all made up that they were going to be by his brother-in-law. Okay. Chaim describes that he walked into his brother-in-law's house, and on the coffee table was a book, Who by Fire. Now, if you haven't read this book, it's well worth reading. It's the story of a young woman living in Yerushalayim. She's in her apartment, and suddenly the apartment bursts into flame. She runs out into the hallway, and she's safe. And then she realizes that her children are still in the apartment. She runs in, grabs one child, runs in, grabs a second, grabs a third. In the end, she saved all of her children, but she also suffered burns on 85% of her body. The title of the book, Who by Fire, it's a powerful example of a woman's emunah, of her bitachon, but it's also a harrowing read because you see what it means to be burnt alive. In any case, Chaim describes that when he walked into his brother-in-law's apartment, on the table was a book, and he was magnetized, he was mesmerized by it. He picked it up, and he couldn't put it down. He was a big masmid. Normally on Shabbos he'd be chazer in Gemara. He didn't open a Gemara. He couldn't put this book down. He read it cover to cover. He didn't know what to make of it. Whatever. Shabbos afternoon, he walks into yeshiva for mincha. As he walks into the base medrash, he gets a sitter. He goes to his place. He looks up and he realizes that everyone's looking at him. My suit, my tie, why they were staring at me? Doesn't know what to make of it. Daven Shemon Esrei takes three steps back, looks up, and again sees it. Everyone's staring at him. That's why is everybody looking at me? Doesn't know what to make of it. Finally, after davening, he goes over to one of his friends and says, why is everybody staring at me? His friend said, you didn't hear? Chaim says, hear what? His friend said, well, sorry to tell you this, but last night your house burnt down. 2 a.m., the furnace exploded. The entire building was engulfed in flames. Chaim, his wife, his kids weren't there. They were at the brother-in-law. But the pivotal moment of Chaim's life was not that previous Thursday night discussion, do come, don't come. The pivotal moment of Chaim's life was the previous Rosh Hashanah. And Chaim was being shown, read the book. There was a diyun, there was a judgment. It's not just mi yechya or mi amos who will live and will die, but mi ba'esh, mi ba'mayim, exactly the method. And Chaim was told, read the book. There was a judgment. For whatever which reason you were decided, it was decided you should be saved. Read the details and understand. Melech ozer u'moshiach magin. You know what that means? The Gross says, Hashem is the Moshiach. We say in Shemon Esrei. Melech ozer means Hashem saves me. But it kind of looks like Hashem helps me, but it's sort of like me. Moshiach is when I'm in the pit and I can't get out. But what's mugging? What does it mean, shield? You know what shield means? I used to run. It wasn't that many years ago, and my daughter convinced me to run again. She's running High Lifeline marathons. I'm joining her again in Miami. It's Hashem, January 24th. I hope to be there. Anyway, 4 years ago, I'm running in Monsey, and when I run, I'm very intense, I'm very focused, and I'm not paying attention to anything other than what I'm thinking about, and I'm running very fast. And it's a rainy, wet night, and as I'm running here, for some reason, a car comes way too close to the curb, hits a puddle, splashes me, and it breaks my stride. Like I stop, and then I continue, and a few steps later, I put my foot down on the curb, and as I put my foot onto the street, a car comes the other way, whoosh, and I feel the wind of the car. And then I did the math. What if that first car didn't come too close and didn't splash me? My stride would not have been broken, and instead of putting my foot down into the street 1 second later, it would have been there 1 second earlier. Car, body, very, very bad ending. Mugging means Hashem is my shield. Hashem protects me even when I don't know it. Even when I'm unaware. Hashem is with me 24/7, 365, and that's when Hashem is a mugging. And that's something you have to understand, you have to think about. We beg Hashem, we ask Hashem for mercy. We trust in Hashem's mercy. We trust in the power of tefillah. And Hashem grants us a good, sweet year with atzlacha, bracha, and everything good. And now questions. Yes?
Oh yeah, also, like you said where we like don't sing on Rosh Hashanah by Hallow. Well, apparently we kind of do sing because by Sivos we say I don't want to say it close, and then by Me'il we also sing.
Right. So there definitely are. I mean, Sukkot Zimmer really is praises to Hashem. So we sing praise. The Hallel is the one tefillah that's considered all, like it's a special level of singing praises to Hashem. It's done on a joyous occasion. In other words, meaning Kriyas Yamsuf, we celebrate because with Hallel, when Hashem saves us, so Hallel is a special tefillah of joy, of jubilation, of joy-filled. That isn't part of Rosh Hashanah. You're right. The Psukkah Zimmer we say, parts of tefillah certainly we say that sings praise to Hashem, but that special tefillah of Hallel we don't say. And again, that was the Malachim's question. It should be there because by all rights we're experiencing something on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that should fill us with tremendous joy. And again, it does, but it's tempered with the understanding that I'm being judged. Yeah.
I have two questions. The first question is this. I remember learning at some points, I'm not sure if I understood it right, that we are judged on Rosh Hashanah, but we still have a chance until Sukkot. I don't know if that's really the case. So that's one part of my question.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of my question is, while we are again judged on Rosh Hashanah, we are still praying during the year to help us with any issues or anything that we really want. So are we really judged 100% or there's open space? And
Okay.
how far are we judged?
Good. Okay. I'm going to deal more with the second one, but I think it'll answer the first one also. Okay, here we go, guys. You ready for this one? Watch this. It's Rosh Hashanah. I'm in shul davening away. Beautiful kavanah. Suddenly I hear a bas kol, heavenly voice. Shafer! Yeah. I was sent from Hashem. What? I was sent to tell you this year you'll make $10 million. Whoa! $10 million is amazing. I walk out of shul happy as a lark. I quit my day job. I don't even look at the newspapers. I know exactly what's going to be. I don't do anything because I heard the boss call, I'm going to make $10 million that year. What do you think is going to happen?
You're going get lazy.
I'm going to get hungry that year. Why? Because when Hashem decrees that I'm going to make a certain amount of money, Hashem doesn't take away free will. Hashem says this is accessible, this is available, but you have to do your part. To earn a living, you get a job. To stay healthy, you eat right, you exercise. To get married, you have to go out. If I decide, you know what, this is going out, it's too expensive, it's a pain in the neck, I'm not going out. Well, guess what? If you decide you're not going to get married, it's very well within your capacity not to get married. But bashert, doesn't everybody have a bashert? And bashert means it's accessible, it's available, but you got to do your part. If you decide you don't want to work, well, bets are off. You don't want to get married, that's your choice. Hashem doesn't hand shackle a person to a particular fate. Hashem makes it accessible, it's available. The decree is assuming you do your part. Your part is derech hatev, you have to go in the ways of the world. As you have to earn a living by getting a job, so too the other things that Jew has to do. One of those things is daven. And very often Hashem will make your decree dependent on you doing certain things, namely getting a job, and also davening. And if you do one without the other, well, tough luck. Because it's part of the shtabla, it's part of what you have to do. So if you want to know why we daven, there are a number of reasons. One reason is because oftentimes that's exactly what's needed, and if you don't do it, you're not going to make that money or have the health or your children's success or whatever it may be. There are other reasons a little complicated, but the point being that even though the decree is set, we still have to do our shtablis, which includes the derech hatev, the way of nature, and also includes davening as part of what we have to do as Jews, because often Hashem will wait until we daven so we can understand, so we can get it. Questions, thoughts, observations? Yes?
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if we really took what you said in terms of the intensity of Rosh Hashanah on the day, I'm just questioning for myself, like, I don't know how I would possibly be able to have a meal after I take a break. Like, how does that work together?
Okay. That's a good question. And I remember very clearly when I was in yeshiva, how do you eat a meal? Oh my goodness. Yom Hadin, how could you eat a meal? But that's a great question, you hear? That's a great question. If you're asking the question, that's great. Now, there's an answer to the question, but the question is better than any answer. You see, the answer to that question is we trust in Hashem's mercy, we trust that Hashem wants our success, we trust that Hashem loves us, but the question means that you're beginning to get it, like, oh my goodness, it's real. It's a big deal. There's like a lot of stuff being decided, and I better get to work. So again, the answer is that we trust Hashem's mercy, and we trust that Hashem wants us to do well and succeed. So, but the question is much better than the answer. You know what I mean by that? But again, in the good old days when I was in yeshiva, that was a real feeling that I would often have. You know, davening ended late in the day, and the meal, I don't know what the meal was anyway, but the point was, it was like, all right, yeah.
What I understood from the Shmuz, Rosh Hashanah, a chance that you should like really pray, because a lot of things are being discussed or open for discussion. But at the same time, I learned that on Rosh Hashanah you're not allowed to pray for anything. You're supposed to accept God as the King, and that's the whole prayer service, and that's it. So are you supposed to pray for things?
Excellent.
Which things are being decided,
Excellent
or
question.
you're not supposed to pray for anything, just
Excellent
God
question.
as the King?
Okay, the main avoda, the main job of a Jew on Rosh Hashanah is to be mamlich Hashem, to understand that Hashem is the king. Now I want to explain to you what's easy about that and what's hard about that. To sit back, wow, Hashem judges South Africa, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, wow, that's great. Hashem's the king over everything. That's easy. Hashem's the king over me? I don't know, king over me? I'm not so comfortable with that idea. You mean Hashem's my boss? Like, I don't know, that's not so. You see, the main way to be mamlech Hashem is to be mamlech Hashem over me, for me to get it. Well, guess what? When I realize that my parnasa is really dependent on Hashem, my success is really dependent on Hashem, my shalom bayis is really dependent on Hashem, that's when I get it that God is in charge, God is the king. But until I ask, until I beg, until I go through that process, I don't get it, it's not real. It's very easy, Hashem's the king over there, but understanding that it's real, that when I walk down the street, whether I get hit by a car or not, whether I make it home or not, is in Hashem's power. And Hashem runs the world, not in theory, 13 billion light years up there, but right here, that's really being Mamlech Hashem. And you only get that when you beg, when you beseech, when you ask Hashem for things that are important to you. So it's not a contradiction. It's, the Bali Musa explained that by asking for your personal requests, that's how you begin to really understand that Hashem is in charge. Yeah?
This is something that what she was saying, if I may comment on it. I heard something from another rabbi, says the whole purpose of the Suda is Hashem wants to see us happy in general. Whether it's, we're getting judged, but at the same time, when a person's sad inside mentally, it makes them feel more depressed inside. When a person's happy inside, they got a better chen.
Right.
So it actually favors you when you're
better
happy
judgment, right.
than when you're sad and depressed.
And 100%. Rosh Hashanah is not a depressing day. That's both feelings. Rosh Hashanah is a day of mixed emotions, two seemingly conflicting emotions, but they're not. Tremendous joy. Wow, what a day! But it's a serious day. You know, it's both of the. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. It's like
getting a job interview. You know, it's a serious day,
but you're like looking forward to it. Or better yet, you're prepared for the marathon. You work 4 months. And you're gonna write. Let's go. You have trepidation. Am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it? But let's go. I worked it. Both feelings are there. It's like tremendous joy, but also the serious. You know, so both feelings. So right, you're supposed to enjoy the meal, and you're supposed to be happy. Again, it's halavai. We ask the question that I can't be happy because I'm so afraid, because usually we're so spaced out. We're like that child in the car seat. So, but again, if you find yourself too much filled with dread, you have to focus on the fact again. Hashem has mercy, and Hashem loves us. Hashem wants our success. Okay, folks. Before I end, let me just mention one point. This is a shmuz. All the shmuz are available on shmuz.com. If you have a smartphone, don't get a smartphone. They're not smart, they're dumb. If you happen to have one, get the Shmuz app. It's available for the Android as well as the iPhone. Go to the Google Play or the App Store. You can download it, it's all free, and there's 250 Shmuzim. And you can even cheat. This was Shmuz number what? What Shmuz was this tonight? No! Shmuz is next. There's a Shmuz number? Huh? No. Nobody knows it. You guys, this is Shmuz number 2. Sorry guys, this is Shmuz number 2. Look on the app, this is Shmuz number 2. Issues of the day. I cheated. I repeat. You don't listen to them anymore. Used to know them, so I couldn't repeat. Now I can repeat. But the Tshuva Shmuz on September 20th is a new Shmuz. That one you won't know, even if you listen. All right, thank you very much. Good Shiur.